They fired me in a room where everything had already been decided. Sign it and hand over all company assets. Marissa Cole didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The folder was open in front of me. The signature line was marked with a yellow tab. The pen sat right where my hand would land if I played along. Across the table, Evan Roth leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, staring past me like this part was already done. My name is Lenora Whitfield. I'm 52 years old. I've been with this company since it was 3 people, 1 server, and a borrowed conference room with bad coffee. I had never been called into HR without warning before. I didn't touch the pen. The room waited. Marissa tapped the folder once.
Evan let out a slow breath, like I was taking too long at a drive-through. I turned my head toward him, reversed the termination. He finally looked at me, no surprise, no hesitation. That's not happening. That was it. No explanation.
No awkward apology. Just removal. Marissa slid the folder a little closer. We need this signed now. We'll also need your badge, your keys, and confirmation that all company assets are returned today. I nodded. Not because I agreed. Because I understood what they thought this was. I reached into my bag and took out my key ring. 11 keys, some old, some newer, all labeled in my handwriting. They made a small deliberate sound when I set them on the table. No one reached for them. Evan's jaw tightened. Anything else I smiled, calm, controlled. The kind of smile you use when a conversation is already over. That's everything you asked for. Silence followed. Not confusion, certainty. The kind people have when they think they've already won. I stood, adjusted my bag, and walked out without looking back. This is usually where they think the story ends. The first email hit before I reached the elevator. Subject: asset return confirmation. By the time I stepped outside, there were 2 more, each one a little more urgent than the last. I didn't reply. I got into my car, closed the door, and sat there with my hands on the steering wheel. They weren't shaking. I wasn't angry. I just felt done. Behind me, somewhere in that building, a decision had already started moving. This story is fictional, inspired by real workplace situations. The people in companies aren't real, but the power dynamics are. Why would human resources care this much about keys after firing someone? I didn't look back when I left the building. No escort, no awkward goodbye. Just the quiet confidence of people who thought the deal was done. My phone buzzed before I reached the car. Subject: asset return confirmation. Please confirm that all company property has been returned, including physical and digital assets. No greeting, no name at the bottom. I put the phone face down and started the engine. It buzzed again. Follow-up required. We need written confirmation today. The wording tightened fast. This wasn't a reminder. It was pressure. By the 3rd email, the tone changed. This includes any documents, access credentials, or materials in your possession. I let out a short laugh, not amused, just tired. Documents, I said out loud, to no one. Years earlier, back when the company was still pretending it didn't need rules, someone had slid a folder across a folding table in a borrowed office. The printer was jammed. Coffee tasted burnt. Everyone looked exhausted. Can you sign this temporarily? The founder had asked. Just until things stabilize. I remembered how that word hung there. Temporarily. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go. It rang again. Then again. I flipped the phone back over. Final notice: failure to confirm may be escalated. Escalated. To who? I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted every word. Instead, I forwarded the emails into a folder I hadn't opened in years. One I'd made back when my job meant remembering things other people didn't want to think about. The phone rang again. This time, a name. Marissa. I watched it vibrate until the screen went dark. At the stoplight, another email came through, shorter, sharper. Lenora, we need confirmation now. I slipped the phone into the console and looked straight ahead. If you've ever been fired, you know this part. The job's gone, but suddenly they're very interested in what you still have. I didn't ignore them because I was confused. I ignored them because I was starting to understand exactly what they were afraid of. How do you forget who signed the paper that keeps the lights on? I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't sit down. I went straight to the filing cabinet by the hallway wall and pulled the bottom drawer. It stuck, like it always did. I pulled harder than I needed to. The folder was right where it had always been. White, thick, black marker across the front, lease original. I hadn't opened it in years. Not because it didn't matter, because no one had ever questioned it. I set it on the kitchen table and flipped it open. The first page slid out easily. My name was at the top, spelled exactly the way I'd written it back then. Lenora Whitfield, no company letterhead, no executive signature block, just me. I let out a slow breath and kept going. The phone rang again. I didn't look. Page 2, page 3. Amendments clipped behind the original agreement. I remembered the meeting when one of them was added. A rushed conversation in a borrowed conference room. We'll clean this up later, someone had said. Once legal catches up, legal never did. My finger ran over the renewal clause without me really thinking about it. 30 days written notice required. No exceptions. No automatic extension. I turned to the back. The date sat there, plain and unbothered. The renewal window had closed 2 days ago. I checked my calendar, then my email. No notice, no request, nothing forwarded, nothing missed. The phone stopped ringing. An email replaced it. Urgent, please confirm receipt. I closed the laptop without opening it. Another memory came back, uninvited. A junior executive years ago, laughing during a budget meeting. Facilities stuff is boring, he'd said. It just runs. It only runs because someone signs the right papers. I slid everything back into the folder and clipped it shut, not neatly, on purpose. The feeling in my chest wasn't panic. It wasn't excitement either. It was clarity. This is the moment most people miss, not the revenge part, the paperwork part. They hadn't asked about the lease because they assumed it belonged to them. And I'd learned a long time ago, assumptions only work until someone opens the file. If you can stop something bad from happening, do you owe a warning to the people who caused it? I waited an hour before writing to Evan, long enough to be sure I wasn't reacting, short enough that the clock still mattered. The message was simple. Reverse the termination, today. No explanation, no attachments, no threats. The reply came faster than I expected. This decision is final. You don't have leverage here, Lenora. I read it twice, not for what it said, but how it said it. That confidence wasn't new, it was practiced. Before I could close the screen, another email came in. Please confirm you have returned all company assets. Human Resources, Marissa this time. Legal copied. The tone was sharper now. This includes any materials, records, or documents created during your employment. I thought about the folder on my kitchen table, the one they hadn't mentioned, the one they assumed belonged to them. I started typing a response, stopped, deleted it. Evan called. I answered without saying hello. Whatever you think you're doing, he said, voice controlled but tight. Stop. I let the silence sit. He filled it quickly. You were operations, facilities. You don't get to threaten the company. I'm not threatening anything. He laughed. Short, comfortable. The sound of someone who thought this was still his conversation. This is what happens when people confuse access with authority. The call ended. Minutes later, another email arrived. The subject line was in all caps. Final request for confirmation deadlines. End of day language. Escalation paths spelled out like warnings on a label. I forwarded it to the same folder as the rest. The room felt quieter once I stopped replying. Not calmer, clearer. I picked up the lease folder and slid it into my bag. Not to hide it, just to acknowledge it. This is the moment where silence stops being avoidance and becomes a choice. There was nothing left to explain. No more warnings they would hear. No version of this where being understood changed the outcome. I turned off my phone. The decision had already been made the moment I stopped trying to convince them I was right. What does power look like when it's hiding inside a date on a calendar? Lenny picked up on the second ring. He always did when I spoke like that. I need you to look at something, I said, not to interpret it, just confirm it. Paper shifted on his end. A pause. Then typing, send it. I did. The lease, the amendments, the renewal clause I'd already read more times than I could count. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay, he said carefully. The renewal required written notice at least 30 days before expiration. I know, I'm confirming, he said. There's no record, no email, no certified letter. The silence between us wasn't heavy, it was precise. So the term converted, I said, yes, month to month, and termination. He didn't rush his answer, aloud, with proper notice. How much 30 days is standard, he said. Less if there's a breach. I closed my eyes. They sublet a storage office last quarter. No consent. That qualifies, he said. And they already missed the renewal window. So eviction is possible. Eviction is lawful, he corrected. The word landed clean. Lawful, not emotional, not personal. I heard him breathe in. Do you want me to draft the notice? Yes. Another pause. Then, quieter. You understand this escalates things. I do. This ends the relationship. It already ended. I said. They just think they decided how. Keys clicked again. I'll prepare the filing. Everything will be time-stamped. When does the clock start? The moment notice is served. I looked at the lease folder, still open on the table. My name sat at the top of every page, steady, unchanged. Then start it. He didn't congratulate me. He didn't warn me again. He knew the difference between winning and proceeding. Before hanging up, he added, once this is filed, there's no pulling it back. I'm aware. The call ended. I stacked the papers and clipped them shut, not out of habit, on purpose. This is the part people misunderstand. It's not revenge. It's just following the rules they stopped paying attention to. The clock didn't feel loud. It didn't need to. Time was already moving, and they had chosen not to notice while it did. How quietly can you do something that can't be taken back? Lenny sent the draft before noon. No explanation, no opinions, just the document. Clean, straightforward. My name already where it needed to be. I read it once, then again, slower the second time. Not because I was unsure, because details matter. His message was short. Once you sign, this becomes procedural. Procedural. They used that word all the time. I signed. No pause, no second guessing. The ink dried almost immediately. The decision had been dry long before that. An hour later, Lenny messaged again. Filed. Time-stamped. Certified copies queued. Another message followed right after. I've looped in the property manager. Expect a call. It came a few minutes later. Thomas Keller, the man said, when I answered. Calm voice, professional. We received notice from counsel. I just need to confirm intent. You have it, termination effective in 30 days, he continued. Given the missed renewal and the unapproved sublet, enforcement is straightforward. I'm not asking for anything special. I said, understood. He replied. Posting will follow standard protocol. There was a brief pause, then, quieter. They haven't responded to earlier notices. They didn't respond to me either. That makes things simpler, he said. The call ended. No sympathy, no warnings, no drama. I checked my phone out of habit. 5 missed calls, 2 voicemails, all familiar numbers, none from anyone who actually had authority. An email came through while I was still holding it. Subject immediate clarification needed human resources. Marissa's name bolded. We've been advised of a filing. Please confirm this is not an error. I didn't open it. Another message followed. Marked urgent. This action could have serious consequences. I forwarded both to Lenny. His reply came back quickly. They're officially on notice now. That was it. The quiet afterward wasn't relief. It was things lining up the way they should have all along. I put the signed notice back into the folder and closed it. Not because it was finished, but because it no longer needed me hovering over it. This is the part people expect yelling, but real consequences usually arrive on letterhead. No speeches, no ultimatums, no raised voices, just paperwork, filed correctly, and a process that would keep moving whether anyone liked it or not. What does it mean when the people who ignored you suddenly can't stop calling? The first call came before 8. Facilities. A number I knew right away. I let it ring. A second call followed. Then a third. Human resources this time, marked urgent. I set the phone down and watched it vibrate until it went quiet again. The fourth call left a voicemail. Lenora, it's Dan, he said. There's something posted on the front door. Legal looking, laminated. Security won't touch it without instructions. I stayed where I was. An email came in seconds later. Subject, please advise, urgent. The tone was different now. No orders, no deadlines, just confusion. Another message slid in right after it. Subject, RE asset confirmation. We may have received a document in error. Please call immediately. In error, I said out loud. That phrase was doing a lot of work. The phone rang again. A number I didn't recognize. Ms. Whitfield? A man said when I answered on the third ring. Thomas Keller, Property Management. Just confirming you've been notified that enforcement has begun. I have. The notice was posted at 7:42. He said, they tried to remove it. Security stopped them. Good. They're asking who authorized it. They have the paperwork. There was a short pause. His tone shifted slightly. Respectful, professional, understood. The call ended. I picked up the phone again and scrolled past the missed calls. Marissa had left 2 voicemails. I opened the second one. Her voice was tight. We need to understand what's happening. This has gone beyond HR. I deleted it. Another email came through, copied to legal, compliance, and someone I didn't recognize. We believe there's been a misunderstanding regarding property access. Misunderstanding was generous. Dan called again. I answered. They're in a meeting, he said. Blinds down, people whispering. Someone tried to joke about it. Nobody laughed. Did anyone read the notice? Yes, and he exhaled. They stopped talking. I ended the call without saying goodbye. The phone buzzed again. A new number, Evan. I turned the screen face down. This is usually the moment people realize silence doesn't mean nothing happened. It means something already did, somewhere downtown. A door that had always opened on command didn't open anymore. And for the first time, they were standing on the wrong side of it, finally understanding why the keys they took no longer worked. What does leadership look like when it suddenly has nowhere to stand? Evan's name lit up my screen for the third time. I answered on the fourth ring. Fix this, he said right away. No hello. Breathing fast. Whatever you filed, whatever stunt you're pulling, pull it back. Now, it's not a stunt. You don't have the authority to shut down an entire company, he snapped. You were facilities. I was the leaseholder. Silence, not disbelief. Calculation. You're bluffing, he said finally. Legal would have caught that. They did, I replied. Years ago. You never followed up. He laughed once. Short, forced. You expect me to believe you can evict us over paperwork over a missed renewal window, I said. And an unauthorized sublet. That's internal, he shot back. You don't get to the termination notice was filed yesterday, I continued. The lease converted to month. Enforcement started this morning. I heard his breath hit the phone harder this time. You're going to bankrupt people over this. I didn't set the deadline, I said. You did. When you ignored it. A pause. Longer now. Then his voice dropped. Quieter, meaner. The board is going to hear about this. They already have. Another silence. This one thinner. You really think this ends well for you? I think it ends correctly. Paper shuffled on his end. Keys clacked. Someone else was in the room with him now, whispering too close to the receiver. Send me proof, he said. Right now. I forwarded everything while we stayed on the line. The original lease, the amendments, the filing receipt, the confirmation from property management. Seconds passed. This doesn't make sense, he said. It does, I replied. If you read it. Another voice cut in on his end, muffled, urgent. Evan covered the phone, then came back sharper than before. You blindsided us. I warned you. You didn't explain. I didn't need to. The line went quiet, not disconnected, abandoned. A message followed almost immediately. We need to discuss terms. I didn't answer. This is the moment power realizes it doesn't get to renegotiate reality. They had assumed authority lived in titles, offices, and access. What they were left with was paper, timestamps, and a process already moving forward, one that didn't pause, just because they finally started paying attention. How many people assumed I was replaceable? I didn't hear what happened from an announcement. It came in pieces. Forwarded emails, voicemails that weren't meant for me, logistics notes that didn't bother pretending this was normal. One message showed up first, copied to way too many people. Temporary workspace secured. Effective immediately. Another followed minutes later, remote protocols in place until further notice. No explanation, just movement. Dan called later that morning. He sounded exhausted, like someone who'd been answering the same question all day without permission to give a real answer. They're packing fast, he said. Conference rooms first, anything with screens. Where are they going, I asked. Anywhere that'll take them, he replied. Shared offices, short leases, no signage. By noon, a calendar invite leaked. Board session closed, mandatory for executives. An hour after that, Human Resources sent a company-wide message. Dry, careful. Leadership transition underway. No names, no context. Dan called again. Evan's been placed on leave. Administrative, I asked. Effective immediately, he said. Security walked him out. The call ended there, not dramatic, just done. Later, another email surfaced forwarded by mistake from legal to facilities. An internal review had started. Process compliance, asset handling, termination procedure. Marissa's name showed up twice, then disappeared. By mid-afternoon, the building itself started talking. Delivery trucks pulled up, then left. Access badges stopped working. Printers shut down mid-job. A piece of paper was taped to the front desk, redirecting visitors to a temporary number. No one needed rumors. The truth moved faster through locked doors and rerouted mail. A junior analyst I barely knew texted once. They said you handled operations for years. I didn't reply. Dan called one last time. People are asking what happened. What are you telling them? I tell them we lost the lease. That's enough. When the call ended, my phone went quiet. Not because there was nothing left to say, but because the structure that demanded explanations had collapsed. This is what happens when people mistake titles for ownership. They thought control lived in access, authority, and job titles. It didn't. It lived in the quiet work no one tracked until it stopped being done. What do you keep when you walk away without asking permission? The eviction went through quietly. No speeches, no last-minute calls, no dramatic exits. The notice did what notices do. The building followed the paperwork. Doors locked, access cut. Timelines moved on. I didn't go back to watch them leave. Lenny called once, just once. Everything's finalized, he said. Your name's off the utilities, maintenance, liability, clean exit, good. That's it, he added. Nothing ties you back. I believed him. Not because of the words, but because his voice was calm. Finished. Later that afternoon, an email came in from property management. Keys returned, access revoked. New tenant onboarding scheduled. The subject line ended with a period, like a sentence that didn't need anything else. Another email followed. Human resources. Short, careful. No name at the bottom. Thank you for your years of service. We wish you well in your future endeavors. No apology, no invitation, just distance, typed cleanly. I archived it, at home. I opened a small tin I'd kept for years. Inside were old access cards, a conference badge from another life, and one original key, the first one cut back when the office was just walls and borrowed furniture. I held it for a second, then put it back, not as a symbol of power, just proof that I'd done what I was responsible for. No one called to fix things. No one asked to talk it through. They didn't need to. The outcome was already doing the explaining. I poured a glass of water and stood by the window. The quiet felt different without urgency pressing against it. Not empty, earned. Sometimes the cleanest ending is the one without a conversation. I didn't walk away with revenge. I didn't walk away with control. I walked away with my name intact, my choices owned, and the relief of not carrying decisions that were never mine to begin with. They chose what they did. I chose not to carry it anymore.